You know where we're up to on this in this maamar? Chapter 6. And there are, I think, 9 chapters total. I don't think we're going to finish today, but I think we'll finish in time for Tisha B'Av, which was the point, because this is a Tisha B'Av maamar. Actually, more accurately, a Shabbos Chazon maamar, and it's supposed to prepare us for Tisha B'Av. So we were talking about Mamali and Sovev, and Yichud Kutshabichud Shchinte, and above time, within time, and all that stuff. Remember? More or less? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so chapter 6 starts with Al Piza, according to this, according to what we've been studying. Yesh lavar hashayches de galus l'shichacha. We could explain the relationship between exile and forgetfulness. Exile and forgetfulness. Kamesha Kosov, like it says, Alama lenetzach tishkacheni goimer. Why do you forget us forever? Where's that from? That verse? Very good. From Eicha, Lamentations. It's in the footnotes. You can just look at the footnotes. Oh, it actually says in the English, Eicha. Okay, yeah. And of course, Eicha, Lamentations, is the book that we read on Tisha B'Av itself, and it describes the Chorban, the destruction of the temple. So over there, we lament in Lamentations. We say to Hashem, Hashem, why do you forget us forever? Like, come on, notice us. We're languishing over here. So, Lama tishkacheni, Lama lanetzach tishkacheni. Why do you forget us forever? Ki sibas hashicha hi shiadia shahaysa etzlei mikedem haysa mugbelis. Now, simple definition of forgetfulness is that something you knew was limited from the outset. From the very beginning, it was limited. Or maybe the mikoidim goes on the idea, something he knew before. But the point is, there's a limitation to how he knows it. And therefore, as a consequence, over time it's forgotten. In other words, if there's something that when you know it the first time, you completely know it, you completely identify with that knowledge and it becomes thoroughly integrated with you, then that's not something you forget. You don't forget your name. A person forgets the name, they have neurological problems. It's not forgetfulness, that's like brain damage. And I'm not trying to say that flippantly. Okay, but then there are things that you might forget, like, what was I supposed to pick up at the store? Because it was never like a deep thing, so therefore, with 20 minutes later, I forgot it already. 10 minutes later, 2 minutes later, I forgot it already. Now we can understand what forgetfulness, I'll put it in scare quotes, means by Hashem. Because when we say to Hashem, Hashem, why did you forget us? Obviously, it doesn't mean the same thing as human forgetfulness. But we can use the phenomenon of human forgetfulness to have insight about what quote unquote, forgetfulness means when we say, Hashem, why have you forgotten us? Or why do you forget us forever? De inyan hazikarin hu basovev. Memory is Sovev. Remember what Sovev is, the encompassing or transcendent light. The cave shu bli gvul ein shayich sham hefsik. Because it is unlimited, remember that which is unlimited cannot be contained, so therefore it is transcendent rather than immanent. That which is unlimited cannot be interrupted. That's almost like a truism. That which is unlimited cannot be interrupted. It just goes on and on and on and on. Whereas, in contrast, forgetfulness is located squarely in Malchus, the sphira, the last sphira, kingship, the receptive quality, which processes all the previous energies and packages them for delivery to the next realm. The Malchus he shoydish hanivroim memale. Malchus is the source of created beings, and Malchus is identified with memale, the filling light, the opposite of Sovev. Okay? So let's break it down. Remembrance is equated with Sovev, because Sovev can't be contained, it's unlimited. So when you remember or when something's memorable, that means it doesn't get interrupted. It goes on and on and on. Shicha, forgetfulness, is identified with Malchus. And Malchus is memale, is the source of light that is condensed and attenuated to be proportionate to the capacities of created beings. Okay, so we have these categories, Sovev and memale, which are two favorite words. Uncontainable and contained, corresponding to memory and forgetfulness. Okay? All right. V'lachein, therefore, Kishakiyam atayra mitzvahs to ha'adam hu ba'efin de b'chol yem heim kachadashim. Familiar phrase, we've been talking about it since the very beginning of the maamar. When Torah is to you as if it were brand new, hot off the presses. Which we already explained, and I won't explain again. The only way to see the eternal Torah as brand new, both eternal and brand new, or timeless and timely. How you like that? Meme it up. Timeless and timely. The only way to see Torah as both timeless and timely, which is a paradox, is through the infinite light shining within the finite, which we explained at length previously in the maamar, and I won't explain it again. Ein shaykh in neshicha, there is no forgetfulness. Because what are you talking about there? You're talking about Sovev. You're talking about that which cannot be contained. So that even within the finite, it remains infinite. That is unforgettable. When a person performs mitzvahs in a way that's limited, which we explained at length what that means, that it's limited. It means he sees it as something old that's been around for a while instead of seeing it as something brand new. Sha'oz kishimekayma isa ha-mitzvah b'pam shniya ushlishis. When he does that mitzvah for the second time or the third time, he doesn't have the same excitement as he did the first time. He becomes jaded. Follow this, reciprocation here. Everything's dependent on us. It's all a reflection of how we are behaving. So we do the mitzvahs in a way where it becomes old hat. Been there, done that. This causes that on high, that the limited light will not contain the unlimited light. They become two totally separate realms, and never the twain shall meet. And that is the source from whence forgetfulness emanates. So just like with a person, when the way he observes Torah mitzvahs is limited, from that will come that his pleasure is based on worldly things. Remember we spoke earlier, based on the Alter Rebbe's maamar, that somebody who doesn't see the Torah as chadashim, as new, will not be able to escape being emotionally ruled by his material conditions. We said that at the beginning of the maamar. So when a person does not see Torah as new, all of his pleasure will be based on worldly things. Shezeh hatainig ben yona elam haza gam betayvus heter hu hefech hakdusha. Taking delight in worldly things, even permissible things, he says in parentheses, meaning we're not even talking about sins, we're just talking about indulgence, permissible indulgence. But that is the opposite of holiness, even if it's permissible stuff. The meat is kosher meat, the wine is kosher wine, but it's done for no other purpose than personal pleasure. It's the opposite of holiness. Al derech zehu l'maile, so too above, she'ayidei shezo Sovev mistalek, that when Sovev, which we're equating to Zer Anpin, we said Memale is Malchus, so therefore Sovev is when Za retreats, and we said before it's Kutchabrichu as well, Kutchabrichu and Shchinte. Za and Malchus is Kutchabrichu and Shchinte, same concepts. And I told you that Kaddish means not sacred, but separate. So it retreats, it wants to be separate from the world, so it's flying away. It's retreating from the world. It's godly energy that doesn't want to be contained within the finite. So it's flying away. It's mistalik. It departs. Kutchabrichu salak leila. So the Holy One, Kutchabrichu, withdraws upward. V'nisharak ha-malchus memale, and all we're left with is malchus, which is memale. You understand? We're saying that our way of being, where we are fixated on the pleasures of this world, that causes a reciprocal reaction on high, where Zah retreats from Malchus, which means that Sovev separates from Memale. Zeh goyim yiridus ha-malchus la-achayis ha-klippos galus ha-shchina, and that causes that when Malchus is separated from her mate, from Kutchabrichu, or Zah, she then sort of becomes untethered and she descends further. She's already down. She's the lowest of the spheros, but then she descends even further into klippa, into unholiness, and becomes, it's very sad and tragic, but she becomes the nurturer of klippa. I mean, that's what she is. She is a nurturer.
Who does?
Malchus, the mother, the Shechina. She becomes the nurturer of klippa. And that is the ultimate, what we call galus hashchina, the exile of the nurturing force. What does it mean, the exile of the nurturing force? It means that she's forced to nurture the bad guys. That's what the exile means. Exile means the misappropriation of something, where something is now being used in a disgraceful way, in a way that's not aligned with its original purpose.
Because the Sovev departed from being with the Malchus?
So the Sovev retreats upward, which is Kutchabrichu or Zah. Malchus or Shechina or Memale ends up settling further and further downward and becoming a source of nurture for negativity, so the negativity is getting stronger. Galus HaShechina means that the Shechina is not only in Galus, but she is forced to take care of it, nurture it.
It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it is a vicious cycle. Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. Yeah.
So, shouldn't like the parent in this like relationship make the first?
You're asking why doesn't Hashem interrupt it?
We're expecting the kids
Okay.
to do that?
Well, we do have this maamar, meaning to say this came from somewhere, this knowledge, this information, so we do have the knowledge how to interrupt this process. That's why we're learning this.
Like, for example, before, like by Yetzias Mitzrayim, we didn't have the Torah, and Hashem came and worked with them. So
Yeah,
and now He gave us Torah, so we're
we have
supposed to
tools.
use
We do have tools to interrupt this cycle.
What are the tools? Because
Well,
we're
you
talking
could
about-
deduce what the tools are based
Right,
by
but
reverse engineering the problem.
we're
So I'm flipping it on you. What's the problem?
that we're not feeling excitement and enthusiasm for the
And
next.
why aren't we feeling excitement? Because he says that that's a symptom, not a cause. Why are we not feeling excitement?
We're disconnected.
We're not
Because we're not looking at it as new.
we're not looking at it as new, which he breaks down as really the inability to grasp the paradox of the unlimited within the limited. Let's do chapter 7. V'yesh lekasha zeh im masha kosuv b'haftorah de Shabbos Chazon. Now let's connect this to what it says in the Haftorah of Shabbos Chazon. Yoda shor kaineu gaimer Yisrael lo yoda ami lo hisbaining. An ox knows its master, right? It's a domesticated beast. It knows who the boss is. It knows who feeds it. Yisrael, the Jewish people, did not know. My people did not contemplate. They didn't think deeply. So it's a little bit of a diss there. I mean, it's like even an ox knows its master. And this is a rebuke. I mean, it's a rebuke. My people don't know their master. They don't know Hashem. Upirish Harizal. The Arizal explains. And the Rebbe says in brackets, Shahayim hu erev yem hilula shalai, that his yortzeit is tomorrow. This maamar was Shabbos Chazon. It wasn't Tisha B'Av. It was a few days before Tisha B'Av. The Arizal's yortzeit is Hay of. It's the 5th day. The shor koi al ha'egel she'asu ha'erev rav b'midbar. The ox, the particular ox that's being referenced here by the prophet, is actually the calf, the golden calf that was made by the mixed multitude in the desert. Al yedei shishlichu hatas shekosav b'meisha alei shor bichdei lahales arena shel Yosef. And if you know the story, how that was done, according to the Midrashim, how did the sorcerers of the mixed multitude, the Erev Rav, cause this molten calf to be animated? They took the plate on which Moshe had written, Alei Shor, arise, O ox. Where was this plate from? When Moshe had to retrieve the coffin of Yosef, of Joseph, which was interred in the Nile. They didn't get a crane. He took a plate. I don't know if that means like a plate, like a serving plate. I think it means like a flat object. And he wrote on it, Alei Shor. Alei Shor are words that have to do with Yosef because those are the words of the blessings which Jacob said to his son Yosef. So Alei Shor it's poetry, so it can mean a lot of different things. But one thing it could mean is arise, ox. And Joseph was compared to an ox in that bracha. So when Moshe was retrieving the coffin of Yosef from the river before they left Egypt, so they could bring it back up with them, he made this plate. That later was misappropriated and used for magic to cause the molten calf to be animated. Alei Shor, get up, ox. You know, what's an egel? A calf is a baby ox. Get up, ox. So that was a misuse of that. Umevar, and he explains, Dibetas zeh haya kosav Hashem yeli. On this plate was written the name of Hashem, Yud Lamed Yud. Shem Hasheni Shel Hashem Ben Ayin Beis Shemois. It is the second variation of the 72-letter name. We're getting into deep Kabbalistic concepts. But this is one of the divine names, one of the codes which describe Hashem's relationship with the world. Shehu Hamamuna Al Koyach Hashor Ha'elyon. And this name is in charge of the see, I don't really say the word supernal in any other context other than learning Chassidus and translating it into English. The supernal ox. What is the supernal ox? The ox up there, the archetypical ox. What's the archetypical ox up there in heaven? On the chariot. On the chariot. You know, the chariot has the 4 faces on each side. So there's a concept of the supernal ox, and it is being mischanneled into this idol through the mechanism of this plate, which was used to retrieve Yosef's coffin. Vizehu, and this is the meaning of the verse, Yoda Shor Koineyu Goimer Yisrael Lo Yoda Goimer. An ox knows its master, but the Jewish people don't know. Shahashor Atzme Yoda Shehu Meshem Kodesh. The ox itself knows that it actually comes from a holy name. Yisrael Lo Yoda Ami Lo Yizbainin. And the Jewish people don't know, my nation doesn't contemplate. Lo Yodu V'lo Yizbainu B'zeh. What don't they know? What don't they contemplate? This very fact. In other words, the ox, which the Erev Rav, mixed multitude, turn into an idol, ultimately can be traced to the misappropriation of something very holy. Obviously, the form it takes down here is unholy, but it can be traced to something holy. And the people don't know that. They see it as completely detached. Instead, they think that the calf, arose on its own, and therefore they were misled to worship it. In other words, what should they have realized, according to the Exile? They should have said, yeah, I know that this molten calf is jumping around through magic, but you know what that is? It's merely a misappropriation of holy power. So, don't think it's so impressive. It's not that I think that this cow is doing this on its own. It's getting this vitality from a holy source, which is being hijacked right now. But they didn't see that. They were just like, oh, wow, this cow is doing some cool stuff. It must have some credibility. V'zeh sheharosh tevis shel Yisrael lo yoda ami lo yizbainenhu yili Allah. And that's why, the Arizal says, that's why that these words, Yisrael lo yoda, the Jewish people don't know. Ami lo yizbainen. My nation doesn't meditate or contemplate. That's an acronym for Yili Allah. Yili ascended. This divine name, which is one of the 72-letter names, ascended. They didn't contemplate on the fact that the ox ascended by virtue of the mystical name Yili. Therefore, they thought it arose on its own. So that's what the Arizal explains. the Arizal explains that the error which led to mass idolatry was simply lacking context. It was this myopic view, just zeroing in, look at it, it's moving, it's doing stuff, it has power. No, it doesn't. It's hijacking power. It's misappropriating power. And if you'll trace it to its source, that's all godly power.
And that's what we do with the physical world when we don't connect it with the spiritual.
Oh, so now you're taking this personally. Maybe this isn't just about what happened with the Erev Rav. Maybe this happens right now. Yes. We're describing this as a template of an error where we make a disconnect. Correct? If we don't contemplate. V'yesh leimar, and we can say, this is the Rebbe suggesting his own innovative thought here. The pirush zeh b'Yisrael yoda ami lo yizbeinon, hu limud zchus al Yisrael. This is just the Rebbe's way. The Rebbe says we could actually interpret this as a limud zchus. A limud zchus literally means finding a merit, but it means much more than that. It means like a defense attorney who finds an argument to either mitigate what their client has done or even to completely exonerate the client. So the Rebbe says, look at this, what the Arizal is saying. The Arizal is actually giving us a way of judging the Jewish people more favorably in that terrible, terrible debacle where they are worshiping idols, which is the absolute worst thing there could be. But there's a limud zchus here. The pirush zeh b'Yisrael hu lo yoda ami lo yoda ami lo yizbeinen hu limud zchus ha Yisrael. Okay. Shahasiba lezeh sheto achrei ha'egel, that the reason why they strayed after the calf, hoisu mipnei shalai hizbeinenu b'ha'inyanim hashem yali shalamaylam ha'elam. The reason they got confused is because they didn't meditate on what was happening up in the higher realms, meaning this name Yali. Hainu shagam oz avdu es havaya. Meaning that even then they were serving Hashem.
Again, when?
At that time.
How so?
They didn't realize. It's like your father sends you a card and you fall in love with the postman. You don't realize the card is from your father. The postman is just delivering it. However, since they didn't yet have the command that Torah should always be new in your eyes, their service of Hashem was limited. Shalachin, therefore, hagilui sheheir lahem ozhu raka shemelubish ba'olam. They were only able to connect to the energy that invests itself in the limitations of the world. And that's what caused them to err, to follow after the calf. They couldn't make that leap. They couldn't understand that what they were seeing manifested in the Egel was actually coming from a more transcendent source. They could only see one track at a time.
But didn't they experience the transcendent source just before?
You meaning the revelation of Matan Torah? Apparently, not in a way that they could retain or hold on to. Probably because it happened to them rather than getting it from learning a maamar. If you learn it in a maamar, it'll probably stick with you.
But what came first? Their misappropriation or what happened above? And was the commandment of the Torah being new as a result of the Exile?
The Rebbe is saying like this: we have a commandment, and therefore we are also empowered to see Torah as both timely and timeless. They didn't have that. So what do you want from them?
When did we get that commandment?
You're saying when
The Torah, didn't they have the Torah?
they had the Gili of Matan Torah. No, they didn't have. It took 40 years. Torah was given over 40 years. They had the Seres Adibris, the 10 Commandments. They didn't have everything unpacked yet. Moshe Rabbeinu hadn't told them that. Those words, those exact words.
But was the or in so was that in the Mali also at that time, or they just didn't see it, or was
They
it
just
there?
didn't see it. No, subjectively, they didn't even know it was a thing. How are they going to find it? They didn't even know it was a thing. V'zehu gam shecheta egel gorem l'shviras haluches. By the way, this is also why the worship of the calf led to the breaking of the tablets. Shal yideze naisa have shodas deshichos haTorah, which in turn led to the possibility of forgetting Torah. The broken tablets. This is a Gemara in Erevin. The sages say that if the first tablets had never been broken, Torah would never be forgotten. There would be no such thing as forgetting Torah. Hainu shegam la'achrei achet nishar hakashesh lahem ima Torah. That means even after they sinned, they had a connection between them and Torah. V'rak shalimar haTorah shel achrei shviras haluches hu ba'agbola shalachin shaykh b'zeh hefsek shicha. They still had a connection to the Torah. It's just that now that the tablets were broken, that changed their manner of relationship with the Torah, which means that forgetfulness became possible. It's possible to learn something and forget it. And that's what allowed, in turn, the possibility that nations could rule over them. Ki kishagilu hurak mibechinas hamalchus. When the only divine revelation you are getting is from Malchus, meaning memale, meaning that which is measured and invests itself within limitations. Yesh nesinas mokim legolus. That allows for the possibility of exile. Kinizkela'el, like we explained in the previous chapter, when we explained the Golus HaShchina, that when Zah becomes detached from the Shchina, Malchus, or Sovev and Mamale become separated, then what happens is the nurturing energy goes down into Klippa and gives it power, which means, in very, very simple terms, that hostile powers are able to rule over us. Where do they get that power from? They get it from Hashem. That power that they're getting, using to oppress us, is a Golus HaShchina. Where are they getting the power that they're using to oppress us? They're getting it from the Shechina. It's divine energy. But the only way that it's possible for them to have access to that is if the Shechina is in Golus. And how is the Shechina put into Golus? We explained. When we don't perceive the paradoxical unity between the transcendent and the immanent. the timely and the timeless. So what we're saying here, not trying to scare anybody, trying to empower you, is that the conditions of Gullus are an outer manifestation of our own relationship with Hashem. And the symptoms of that are many. Forgetfulness of Torah and the power of foreign hostile entities to rule over us are two of the main ones. Yeah. So think about it like this. When we're stuck in a gullus mode, where we're only perceiving mamale, we're only perceiving that which is, I would call it one step beyond materialism, which therefore leads to materialism. The materialist literally has a one-dimensional reality. A materialist doesn't even perceive that there is anything beyond the physical world. We're not talking about being that bad, but we're talking about like one step better than that, which is I appreciate that there's spiritual energy, but only the spiritual energy which is manifested within the physical world. So when I'm locked in like that, then first of all, like he says in the name of the Alter Rebbe, that this lends itself to becoming very attached to physical things, and my only pleasure in life becomes my physical pleasures. But what he's describing here is a view of spirituality that's totally married to physical limitations. And one of the main symptoms of that, in addition to the fact the person becomes a pleasure seeker, a physical pleasure seeker, is that Torah becomes boring. Let's just say it, bluntly. It's not engaging. It's not as engaging as it should be, because it feels old. So the remedy to that is not to tell the person, pay better attention. The remedy is zoom out. Get a bigger picture. What you're seeing is the proverbial tip of the iceberg. The mamale is just one dimension. There's this whole Sovev going on. What you're perceiving right now in this moment, yeah, that's in the limitations of time-space. But reality is way bigger than time-space. So what we're doing actually is expanding the context. We're not saying focus more tightly. We're saying zoom out more. And then it hits us that a molten calf doesn't have its own energy source. And that nations that oppress us are not really that strong and powerful. They've just been hijacking divine energy. And then what happens is we understand that we can be in a particular time and place, and yet we're connecting to something that is beyond time and place. So in very simple terms, let's try to say this in regular language that we use every day. Learning Torah is an opportunity to, there's an expression that time is what keeps everything from happening all at once. So learning Torah is an opportunity to be on the plane where everything happens all at once. And yet, at the very same time, we don't lose sight of the mamale even when we are aware of the Sovev. Yeah.
So is like a definition of gullus when Sovev and Male are separate?
Golus is, where Sovev and Male become separate. Kutchabrichu and Shrinte become separate.
So is another way of explaining the time of Dir B'Tachtonim is when Mimali and Sovev unite?
Well, Dir B'Tachtonim is, how can there be a place that contains the infinite one, right? So that itself, and that's what, when Shlomo Melech built the first Beis HaMikdash, that was, how can there be a physical place that contains the Shekhinah, right? And ultimately that's the paradox, that the finite can manifest the infinite. So Dir B'Tachtonim, meaning the perfection of the physical plane, is the embodiment of that principle.
So Hashem kind of wants us to act a paradox.
Yes, he wants us to act a paradox, live a paradox.
How can we do that? That's a lot to ask of us.
It is a lot to ask, but it's doable. It's doable.
How?
Well, we have here these concepts. We have the concepts here.
But practically speaking,
It's like, I got to check my email. All right, why are you checking your email? Because I might have something there I need to take care of. Okay, do you know you have 10,000 unread emails? Did you read all of those? Well, those are old, right? Or I got to go check my social media. I go on Facebook. I got to go see what was posted today. Do you know you missed 10,000 posts yesterday? But with this nagging feeling of, I got to go catch up. The new, right? Whatever's new. Okay. So we all know that feeling, that FOMO, fear of missing out on the new stuff. All right? So how come you don't feel like that? I got to go learn some Kitzur Shulchan Aruch right now. What are you talking about? Kitzur Shulchan Aruch was written 200 years ago. It's not new. It's not pressing. If we understand that Torah is coming from an infinite place and lending itself to be experienced within the finite, then we understand that it's brand new. So we would have this feeling of, I want to go check out what it says in Sefer HaMitzvahs. I want to check out what it says in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I want to check out what it says in the weekly Parsha, with that same excitement that you want to go see what new emails might have come in. It's like you're sitting here for an hour. I mean, I'm saying myself, I'm sitting here for an hour in a shir. And when I leave, what's the first thing I do? I see, what did I miss while I was here? What new stuff came in? What new texts did I get? What new emails did I get? Why is that new? Why is this not new? Okay, so we're trying to reverse the
Mimali learning. Our Mimali upbringing.
Yeah, our Mimali upbringing. So we're conditioned by Mimali to feel like we're sitting in a Torah class, and that's sort of like,
In the vacuum.
The time
I'm
devoted.
like, my Mali perspective is, I'm going to take a break from reality and go learn for an hour. And then after that, I'll go back to the pressing issues of life. That's Gullus. That's Gullus. So Geula is, this is current events. This is the most urgent, this is the most timely thing that I could be doing right now.
So why are we leaving?
Why are we leaving? Good question. Because of Dir B'Tachtonim, because we do need to apply this stuff to the world, because the whole point of it is to translate it into our experience in the world.
When is it the tipping point?
Yeah, Ad Mosai, that's the real question. When's the tipping point? Because really it should have been the tipping point already. It's getting a little bit ridiculous.